longer than I've been here, but actually didn't find out about what she was up to in the last few years through her parents, who are very proud of what she's doing, but through Tom Glenn. And she is CEO and co-founder of Afia Clinics International, and I'll let her tell us what all that's all about and the wonderful work that she is doing to help out in right now Ghana and perhaps other places in Africa. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Good morning. First, I would like to say thank you very much for having me here. I've always known about Rotary. My best friend, I was telling Tom, went to Italy on her 13th year through a Rotary scholarship, and she just had the best year of her life, and so I'm really appreciative of all that Rotary has done over the years, so it's very exciting for me to be here. I would like to thank Rabbi Kata and Tom Glenn again for inviting me to speak and being so enthusiastically supportive of everything that I've been doing. As he said, my name is Shira Goldstein. I was born and raised in Tacoma, and I'm here to regale you with the story of the last 7 years of my life and hopefully not put you to sleep in the process. So I too went to University of Puget Sound. My dad's a professor there, and I stayed local as well. And I went there as a freshman in 2004, 2005. And that year I decided that I wanted to take off somewhere and have an adventure. I wanted to volunteer, and I wanted to figure out what it was that I wanted to study in school. Actually, let me backtrack. So I went to Ghana, and just in case everyone doesn't know, it's not in South America. A lot of people think Guyana. You can see on the screen on the western coast, underneath the bump, there's a little green country that says Ghana in really small printing. So that's where I decided to go during my year off. And you can see on the actual blown up picture of Ghana, and the bottom right hand corner is an area called the Volta region. It shares the border with Togo, and so that's where I went with the volunteer program in 2005 to go do something, figure out what it was that I was interested in. So as I said, that year I took off and I went to Ghana for 6 months, and I found a volunteer program that took me there, and I kind of just landed and started teaching at an elementary school. Realized I am not a teacher, and I found 2 local NGOs to work with doing HIV outreach, education, and getting surveys kind of implemented in the community to see what people knew, what they didn't know. And the 2 organizations I started working with were both local. One's called Youth Against AIDS, or YAA, and the other was Yingor Development. So during that time, I spoke to over 400 people on the whole length of the peninsula that I was staying on. And I really saw that people just did not have the basic education, the background. When it came to HIV or a lot of other diseases, there's a lot of myths spreading around with HIV spread by mosquitoes, which if you're in a country where malaria is the #1 problem, that makes sense, but just a lot of myths that pose very dangerous health consequences. And so that year, in the spring of 2006, when I was 19 and very naive, I decided to buy some land and build a clinic. And I did so with the help of the local NGO, but I basically just called my parents and I said, so I bought land and I'm doing this. And I obviously had no idea what I was doing, but I decided that I was just going to try to do something. So the reason why I decided to do it in this area, not only was this the place that I landed first, but the more I got to know the community and the atmosphere, I realized that this is an area that really needed this kind of work. As I said before, I was on a peninsula called the Keita Peninsula on the coast. It's a beautiful setting and very, very rich. Western Africa is very rich culturally. There's a lot of heritage still alive there. And there's a lot of reasons behind the need for this kind of healthcare in the area. One is it's a peninsula of about 45,000 people, 1 hospital, and 2 clinics. One of the clinics is a very small maternity clinic, and the other one is an outreach. It's an outpatient clinic, and then 1 hospital for that many people. So as you can imagine, understaffed, overworked. I waited like 7 or 8 hours just to see a doctor for a small ear infection, just to get antibiotics. And most people can't afford to take off and wait the whole entire day just for something small like that. The expense of the healthcare is much more than what people can afford on a regular basis. It's a peninsula of agricultural, farming, fishing, and for people to spend on average $10 to $15 at the government hospital where prices are fixed, that was more than they earned probably in the span of a few weeks. And there's also the travel time. The peninsula is a very long, skinny peninsula, and if you live off the one paved road that exists on the whole length of the peninsula, it's difficult to get in. There's no cars that run back there, and the hospital's at one end, so if you live at the other end, most people can't take the time or afford to actually get to the hospital for the care that they need. And there are also a lot of local healers. As I mentioned, it's very culturally rich, and the area that we're in, the Volta, is dominated by a tribe called the Ewe tribes. And they are known throughout Western Africa to be very strong in juju, witchcraft, whatever the words that we call it here, but spiritual healing. And in some ways, their healers are extremely helpful. They have, local poultices, and they're able to really help with certain diseases. But with other things, they actually can harm people more than helping. And I've seen that personally. You can see the woman in the top. She's a local healer who I met with a few times. And there's a whole bunch of X-rays and a cast sitting on the ground. I saw a man who had been at her clinic for 6 months. He had fractured his leg in 3 places, but because he didn't have the money or the ability to get to the hospital, he went to her instead. And she didn't reset his leg, she didn't fix it, she just wrapped his leg with like a herb concoction. And so 6 months later, his leg, it wasn't infected and he didn't lose his leg, but he could never walk on it. It's about 3 times the size that a normal leg should be because it never actually healed. And the government hospital doesn't work with the local healers. It's kind of like all or nothing. Either you do Western medicine or you don't. And we have more freedom to kind of work with them to try to help put the good things about the local healings as well as prevent something like this happening again. So, all of that being said, this compelled me to return to school in 2007 and kind of solidify the idea of what the clinic was going to be. In that same summer of 2007, I returned to Ghana to get logistics. What does it mean to build a clinic, as I had no idea. And in 2008, back at UPS, we were able to do fundraising and get 15 volunteers to sign up to come to Ghana to actually help us break ground and do the construction for the building. So as you can see, we had a lot of students, a lot of them from UPS, some of them from Canada, from outside. I worked with a volunteer organization. And over 3 months, we were able to reach the level of the roof before we had to leave and go back to school. So in 2009, I returned again to Ghana that summer to finish the building. As you can see in the bottom corner, or the bottom picture, we were able to finish up to the roof, doors, windows, everything. And we began to solidify the idea for the clinic. And originally, I was interested in more HIV, and the idea kind of grew and morphed as I realized they needed a lot more help in other areas besides just HIV. So we kind of started to get the solid backbone of what the clinic was going to eventually turn out to be. So in 2010, I finally graduated from UPS after all this back and forth. And with my newfound freedom, I decided to start a nonprofit called Afia Clinics International. And over the span of a year, between working and paperwork and logistics and figuring out what the organization would be as a separate entity, we were able to gain our official nonprofit status last June, in the summer of 2011. So it was right before we gained our status, or right after we gained our status, that I decided to move to Ghana. So in July of last year, I kind of packed everything up and I moved to Ghana for the last year. And we were able to completely finish the actual structure. And we got our first corporate sponsorship from a Ghanaian company, Airtel Communications. It's one of the larger communication companies in the country, which is very important to us because we really want to be working with local businesses and getting support from people in Ghana as well as support from outside. So, one thing that Afia Clinics International has as its founding precept is the idea not only of sustainability, but of local participation, whatever buzzword you want to throw out there, but the idea of really getting people from the country to not only help guide the direction of the clinic, but to provide support on the ground care. And as I mentioned, we were working with an NGO from the very beginning, Youth Against AIDS. Well, we were fortunate enough to find this much larger, much more established nonprofit from Ghana called the West Africa AIDS Foundation. And they've been working in Ghana for over 15 years. They have clinics in 3 different parts of the country, and they're very well established. So for us, it was amazing to finally have a mentor, someone who I could go to. I'm not a doctor personally, so just to help take care of patient intake forms and the little things that I had never thought of. It was very invaluable for us to strike up that relationship. So while maintaining the relationship with Youth Against AIDS to help with on-the-ground things in Keita, we were able to form a formal partnership with this other NGO. And in last November, there's a huge festival that they have, which is just incredible. People from all over the country come to the Volta region. And we took that opportunity to do a large kind of 2-day outreach program where we were able to test over 400 people in the 2 days for HIV and malaria, do counseling, hand out condoms, all of those things, as well as do promotion for the opening of the upcoming clinic, which is really amazing for us to be able to really start the formal partnership in a real tangible way. So that leaves us with where we are now. As you can see, the building is now fully completed. Electricity, water, tiles, etc., everything is inside. All that remains is if you look at the bottom picture, the outside view, that you can see some tall poles sticking up outside the front of the clinic. All that remains in the actual building is paving and roofing the patient waiting area. You can see inside the building on the top that our laboratory is a self-contained unit, and then the rest of it right now is being used. We have benches in there, the patients are waiting inside. But we would prefer the patients to wait outside under the covered area and be able to use the inside space for more clinical, either more equipment, expand the lab, whatever we may need to do. So our final project in the building of the actual clinic is paving and roofing and then putting a screen. Mosquitoes are a problem. We don't want people getting malaria while they're waiting to see the doctor, which would be a little against the point. So we would really like to provide a safe space for them away from the eyes of everyone to wait in a comfortable area. So now, me being here is kind of very good timing because we are actually opening our doors on Monday, which is extremely exciting and a little bizarre to not be there while it's happening. But we have an intern from Johns Hopkins University there right now. She's doing her formal internship with us to complete her master's program. She arrived there last week and she'll be there for 4 months. And literally as we speak today, they are loading up the van and moving the equipment in for the laboratory, all the educational materials, posters, everything to turn this building into an actual operating clinic. And we have a second intern coming in October who's a pre-med student who will help oversee the implementation of the medical aspect of the clinic as well as the educational services. So what we actually do at the clinic. Right now we are considered a diagnostic center and we do rapid testing for HIV, malaria, typhoid, diabetes, blood pressure and blood sugar, and hepatitis B and C. We also have free counseling for patients. Obviously, if someone comes in with HIV, they need further work, but if you come in with an STD or if you come in with diabetes, we like to do follow-up so we can kind of prevent people coming back in with these problems again. And we also work with the hospital because if someone comes in with HIV, we don't have our full center set up to take care of them. So we refer them over to the hospital for the medicines, the lifelong care that an HIV patient needs. We also have an educational agenda because our clinic is more than just a physical medical center. It's more of a public health community center. We have classes on a variety of subjects, chronic diseases, communicable diseases, really trying to prevent the spread of a lot of these diseases taking hold in the local community. And we have an 8-week rotation, 2 classes a week, 8 different subjects, and so we're really trying to reach out to people on a variety of issues, not just something like HIV and malaria, which is on most people's minds. And the last one is we're setting up health clubs in the schools to try to get kids thinking about these issues from a much younger age. So it's not all Band-Aid, but it's also preventative within the school kids. So where we're headed, we need a doctor and a pharmacy. Right now we have a registered laboratory tech who can do all the rapid testing, and a nurse and the rest of the personnel, but as I said, we're a diagnostic center. So we're looking for a doctor or an MA, which is like one step below a doctor, who can still do all the prescriptions. So we can actually become an accredited clinic, so we can provide more services. And we really want a pharmacy. We have more room. We would like to, as our next building project, a pharmacy connected to the clinic, because we want it to be kind of a one-stop shop for everything. You go, diagnostics, prescription, medicine, all right there. You go home. You don't have to travel back and forth. We would also like to widen the scope of who we can test rather than making everyone come to us. We are looking into buying a van so we can actually go into them and do regular outreach screenings and testings. And we really want more sophisticated lab equipment, and that comes along with having a doctor. So all of these things are kind of in progress. When we're able to have a doctor, we'll be able to get more tests available at the actual clinic. All right, so now to fund all of this and to try to support all of this clinic, we say sustainability, we really mean it. A lot of people throw that word out, but ultimately the funds are still coming from elsewhere. And for us, it's really extremely important to have the funds and the work coming from people from the area. So we bought a piece of land this past spring, and we're planning to turn it into a chicken farm. So we need to wall it, buy chickens, do everything that you can imagine to actually turn this piece of land into a chicken farm. And once we're able to do that, the monthly expenses for the clinic will be covered. So right now it's just getting the startup costs, getting the chickens, making sure, all of that is set. But to us, we really want to, let's say we need a new microscope or we need something new building, we can fundraise for that, fine. But we want the monthly costs, everything to just be taken care of without us having to worry about fundraising all the time. And we really want it to be viable for the long term, and you can't do that unless if you have funds coming in locally. So now to where that leaves us and how you can help, or how anyone in this community, in Tacoma, in the nonprofit community, we have really limited budget needs. Our annual goal for the whole year for running Afia clinics, for running the clinic, for starting up the chicken farm is only $30,000. And that includes the monthly salaries, utility expenses, the startup, all of that is included in the $30,000 because our operating costs are pretty low for the actual organization. And if you want more information, there's our website. I have pamphlets and cards with me, so if people are interested, they can come and grab one, and it has all of our information on it, so it's an easy way to take it home with you. So thank you very much for listening to me. I know it's early, and I hope everyone has had enough coffee. This is really something that I think is so cool because I'm brought up in Tacoma. I'm from here. I was fortunate enough to be able to go and see this opportunity and do something that, like he was saying, you follow your passion. If you can work in your passion, you're extremely lucky. In that respect, I am extremely lucky. I love doing this. And it's just an added bonus that what I get to do helps, hopefully, a lot of people. And this is also a really cool opportunity for anyone who wants to put an investment in to the organization, to the clinic now. As I said, we are literally opening on Monday. And this is a chance for people to become involved in something special from the very beginning. I'm going to Ghana on October 16th. I'll be there on the ground. All the funds are, very well looked after. Everything, all the investment, it goes directly into the actual project. We're not just some big, giant organization that has projects all over the world that they don't know where half their money goes to. And we really try to look at what the most need is and how it can be used the best. So thank you very much for having me here and inviting me to speak to you all, and I hope you enjoy your day.
Very fascinating. I can't believe at such a young age you decided you were going to go make a difference in the world. Congratulations. Questions for Shira? I'm sure there are some. Pete?
With the worldwide shortage of doctors, where do you hope to find a doctor?
Well, we would like, as I said, we would like a lot of our staff, like our main clinical staff, to be from Ghana, but we are also interested in bringing people over specialized from US, Europe to do training, because a lot of the training that the Ghanaian staff, the medical staff acquire in Ghana isn't up to par as what we consider here. So I would like people to be from Ghana. They have the cultural knowledge, the language, all of those things, but we also are interested in bringing different specialized personnel from the outside to do workshops, to do training, to bring in a new perspective to the clinic.
What's the population size that you're talking about serving, and is there an expectation that they will be able to pay something for the cost of the clinic?
Well, we will be serving directly between 15 and 18,000 people. We hope as we're doing outreach, we'll be able to serve a lot more, but right now the immediate community is about 15,000. Our costs are much, much lower in terms of actually paying for things. We're not charging to see a doctor, we're not charging a clinic fee. Most places you go in, you have to buy a card, you have to pay registration. There's a lot of money up front that you have to throw into the hospital. We're not charging any of that. We just have a basic fee to cover what we pay for the tests. So we're not losing any money, but we're also not making money off people for the tests, which is why something like the pharmacy and the chicken farm are good, because they can be bringing in revenue as well as serving a purpose in the area.
How does the chicken farm make money?
Oh, well, chicken, both eggs and actually eating, it's like the main staple diet of the people in Volta, and there's no other large chicken farm in the area. People have small little cages in their yard, maybe 10, maybe 20 chickens. So once we establish this, we will be the biggest center for a chicken farm. And there's markets every third day along the whole entire peninsula, the markets in the different villages, and every single village you go, there's crates and crates of eggs being sold. So you get, we've already spoken to some market women, and they would all love to come here because we're much more localized rather than going all the way around trying to get chicken eggs from everywhere. So people just come here, we become known, and on a regular basis you're bringing in money.
How did you deal with language barriers when you first went there and now?
Well, luckily, and one of the reasons why I'm able to work there is Ghana is an Anglophone country, so a lot of the countries in Western Africa are Francophone, they speak French. Ghana is one of the, I think, 6 or 7 countries that actually have English as their national language. So especially when I'm working in Accra, in the capital, or the bigger cities, communication isn't a problem. In the rural area, they do speak Ewe. I've learned a little bit of Ewe, and I can actually hear a lot of it. But the people with the NGO who I've been working with, especially Youth Against AIDS, they're all from Cape Town, they're all from the area. So if I ever need help translating, they've always been more than willing to help me do that. So, manageable.
How are you being accepted by the spiritual doctors? Are you working together?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. There are some of them who are extremely helpful and really excited because they see that the healthcare in their region isn't what it should be. And from the very beginning, we have been going to them saying, we're going to do this. You know, when we broke ground, I didn't put a picture up, I should have, but when we actually broke ground, we had the main spiritual leader called the Tegbi from the area, because we're in a town called Way. There's like 6 or 7 towns along the whole peninsula. So in our township in Way, there's one Tegbi, he's a spiritual leader, and he was actually there when we broke ground, like before we put the first shovel in the ground. And he did a whole prayer, and he had a bunch of people from his congregation come, so. And we also had the mayor of the town, and so we're trying to get both sides involved. And you know, I think they're much more accepting of us rather than of the government hospital, because we understand that, you know, we're not there to change their ideas, we're just there to try to help them make them safer. So like we've already had an idea where a baby naming ceremony, they take one blade and they make a tattoo for every single member of the family, both the moms and the dad sides gets the same tattoo on their chest right here. And so there's a line of maybe 50 people, and they use one blade and they go from person to person to person. And if one of those people has HIV, it's like everyone behind them is at such a high risk of infection. So, you know, we're not saying don't do that, but we're just saying we will provide you with blades. Use a different blade per person, things like that. And that's how hopefully we can, you know, we're being much more accepted by the local leaders, not as a threat, but more just trying to work with them. So.
So perhaps you can say a little about how you work with the local hospital.
Oh, yeah, so there's the one hospital, as I mentioned, and as I said, we will be referring our patients to them for HIV to get the medicines and the local checkup, but they also, their system is completely overloaded by people who are coming in for malaria tests for really basic things. So we will act as a referral system for each other in a sense. So if they see that there are a lot of people who are in the waiting room and they all need malaria tests, they can just come to us. We can do the rapid test. It takes 20 minutes, and they don't have to wait in line for 7 hours to see the doctor to then send them to the, it's a very inefficient system. So we will provide a lot of the basic screening and the basic testing while they can focus on what they need to do, which is emergency and primary care and the things that we don't have the ability to take care of. And also the area that we're in has the second highest HIV rate in Ghana because it shares the border with Togo, and Togo has a much higher HIV rate than Ghana does. So we will be able to do more of the outreach screening because we've talked to the hospital. They've all wanted to come into the community and do more intensive screening. They just don't have the personnel available to do the rapid HIV testing for a lot of people in that way. So we'll be able to go and be kind of like the first response, screen everyone, try to test them, see who is actually positive, and then refer those people to the hospital to get the long-term care. So.
Where do you want to be in 5 years?
Where do I want to be in 5 years? Well, I'm actually planning to graduate school next year, so hopefully in school. And I would, ideally, this organization that I have started would take off and we would be able to expand and be doing more things in different places. We've already gone to Tanzania and we have a contract with the locals in Tanzania to build a clinic for 3 Maasai villages. They only have 1 pharmacy amongst the 3 Maasai villages, no hospitals, no nothing else. So if I had my way, I would be working for the organization on a regular basis, my full-time job, you know, trying to implement this type of healthcare in more places. So.
What is your degree in and what graduate school?
My degree is in nothing right now. I went to UPS undergrad and I did comparative sociology. They didn't have public health or anything really, so I want to go for a graduate degree in international public health.
Let's thank Shira again. Story, and I think that you're successful. You're an impressive woman, and I think it's going to happen. Okay, we have a drawing.
We have a drawing. $421. A year 14 white chips.